away.
All right. Yep. So today I'm gonna be doing a little workshop. Okay. Let me share my screen. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So we have the Unity hub here. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. First thing you want to do after you install it, maybe you want to make a new project. Okay. So in the so far for all the asset shuffles, we've been using the 2019 yeah, Unity version. Um yeah, just because it's been convenient. Uh, so that's what we'll be doing today. All right. So we're gonna make a 3D project because essentially what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna be making a really simple uh I don't know if you would even consider it a game, but we're just gonna make a ball. We're gonna make it roll around. We're gonna make it bounce. Okay. And just to give everyone like a nice intro to Unity. Okay, so I'm just gonna call this, I guess, Red Ball Workshop. Then I'm gonna hit create. It's still okay.
Hey Ben, if I could interrupt you for just a second,
Sure,
would you mind dropping your stream down below 60 to like 30 frames a second?
sure.
Uh, I still isn't connected on my side.
Okay. I switched the setting.
Cool. Thanks, dude.
Are you able to see it now?
Let me back out and try again.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm in. Thanks.
all right, sweet. Okay, so now we have a fresh and brand new project. There's absolutely nothing here. Okay, so since we're trying to make a ball roll around, I think the first thing we want to do is make a ball. Okay, so up here we have like a bunch of different like tabs and windows and stuff. Um, so we're gonna go over to component. We're gonna make a new ball. Uh, wait, no, game object, my bad. Game object, 3D object, and then we're gonna make a sphere. Now we have a ball. Wow. Okay, so in order to control the camera around, you can hold right click, and then you could use WSD to move around. Um, and then you can also use the mouse scroll wheel to zoom in or out. It's pretty intuitive if you played like I don't know like a game with no clip. Um, but yeah, so now we have a ball on the screen. Okay, and so if we go to the game view, so the game view uses wherever the camera is. So this is what the camera is looking at. So as you can see, the camera's like just facing the ball, and all we see on the preview is just the ball. So if we want to see what the game, what we'll see when we're in game, we just click on the game tab, and then this is what the camera's looking at. Yeah, so we just have a ball in the middle of space. If we click play, nothing happens. It's just a ball. Okay. Yeah. So next thing we might want to do is make a surface, because right now it's literally just floating in space. So we're gonna go to game object. We're gonna make another 3D object, and this time we're gonna make a plane. Okay. So this is just a straight up white plane. If we look into game mode, it's invisible because the camera is in the same like coordinate as the plane. So we're just gonna move the camera. Oh wait, it is not in the same coordinate. I forgot. Okay, so when you move the camera around in the scene view, when you spawn new objects and stuff, it'll put a position wherever your camera is facing. So we'll have to reset this position. So I'll just zero everything out. Okay, now it's on the ball. Okay, yeah, when we go in the game view, yeah, it's in view, and the ball is like inside the plane. Okay. Um, so we're just gonna move the camera up a little bit, that we can get more of a perspective, and then we're also gonna move the ball up. So now it's a ball on top of a plane. Then we're just gonna resize the plane here, so that way there's a bigger surface. So um, yeah, as you can see, like the coordinate system, just like, normal normal 3D vector stuff. We got X and then Y and then Z. Um, yeah, so we only adjust the X and and the Z, so that way we can just make it a plane. And then yeah, so now we have just a ball on top of a plane. Um, okay, now everything's white, so we might want to be able to differentiate what we're looking at. Um, so we're gonna change the color. Um, okay, so in order to add texture or colors to objects, you have to make a material game object. Um, and so we're gonna make a new folder here. We're gonna call it materials. And then in this folder, we're gonna make a material. Wow, who would have thought? So we're gonna make this one just red. So this is just gonna be the color red. And so this material right now is just the standard everything. It's just default everything. So this is still white. So we're gonna change the color. We're gonna make it red. And then now we could drag and drop the material onto the ball. And then as you can see, it changes the color of the ball. Now it's red. So if we go back in the view, we see it's a red ball. And then the plane is just kind of like an abyss right now. So we're gonna make a new material. We're gonna make this a checkerboard pattern. So I'm gonna call it checker. And then over here, for um, al albedo, we can select a texture here. So then we're clicking on this like little dot right here. So that way we can bring up the select texture option. So you can import like any texture that you download, but here are the default Unity ones. So we're just gonna use the gray texture one. And then now we're gonna put the texture onto the plane. And then so now we have like a really big checkerboard. So we're gonna need to resize the texture to however big we made our plane. So in the tiling, we could change the size of the texture for like how we will tile. So basically, right here under tiling, um, it does it does like a 1 by 1, and then over here we change the size so that way. Um, oh wait, wrong one. This one. So we change this one to 10 by 10. Okay. And then now everything is now we have a repeating like checkerboard pattern throughout the whole plane. So now it's easier to like kind of see like where the ball is. Okay. By the way, am I going like really fast? Like everyone's following, right?
Yeah, please, if you have any questions at all, just butt in and stop Ben and interrupt him. But there's no like hand raising system here. You just go
Mm-hmm.
for it.
I'm good.
All right. Everything's simple enough so far? All right. Okay. So now we have a ball. We have a red ball on top of a plane. Okay. So if we click the play button, still nothing happens. It's just a red ball in like space on top of a plane. And so um, now we're gonna have to add some physics. Okay. So in Unity, when you make these new 3D game objects, it'll automatically create this collider. So the thing is like when you import like 3D models and stuff, this collider won't already be there. In that case, you'll have to add the collider manually. And there's like a lot of colliders in Unity. So there's like the box one, which is where it makes a collider that's in the shape of a box, a capsule, circle. So there's like these 2D ones for 2D stuff. Then like all the ones without 2D are obviously 3D. Um, so yeah, if you were to like, for example, like import like a 3D model that has a really irregular shape and you want it to have like the proper collider, I think the plane one, yeah. So the plane one has a mesh collider. And so the mesh collider will just automatically generate a collider based on like the model itself. So like in this case, because it's a plane, it'll just make a collider that's in the shape of the plane. So because we generated them though, through like this, it just automatically created them. but yeah, that's just a good to know. That these colliders won't exist if you just drag and drop a model. But okay, so yeah, colliders are pretty much how like objects in Unity like detect if they're touching each other. Um, but then with just the colliders itself, these objects still don't have physics. So um, we need to make this ball have gravity. And so in order to do that, we're going to add a rigid body. And so yeah, pretty much a rigid body just kind of does what is named. Like it just makes it so it has a rigid body, so it has like actual physics, it has a mass, it has drag, and it uses gravity. And so if we press play now that we have this rigid body under the sphere, it will fall down and plop onto the plane. Okay, so as you can kind of see though, like it does not bounce. It just falls and then it just, as soon as it touches the plane, it just stops moving. So, to add some life to this ball and make it less concrete, we're gonna make it kind of bouncy. Okay. So, if you need to add like extra physics to objects and stuff, you can make a new material called a physics material. So we're just gonna make this, I guess, like bouncy. And then there's this neat option right here that is bounciness, and we can put 1. And when we drag it onto the ball, so you can either drag it, you can drag it in here, uh, or like on here. Hold on, is it doing it? Oh wait, yeah, right here. Okay, so it shows up in the collider, that the material is bouncy. Okay, so now that we have a bouncy material onto this ball, we press play, and wow, it's bouncing. Pretty cool. So yeah, so with this bounciness, yeah, we could adjust like the friction and stuff. So this is like, how friction works in physics. Um, and yeah, so like as it moves on the surface, it'll have friction. You can adjust these as needed, bounciness and whatever in the physics material. So now that we have a ball that bounces, it's cool that it bounces, but because we're game dev, so we want to make it so we can like control it, right? So we're gonna add some scripts. Um, so generally to keep things organized, you should like make things into folders. Generally everyone keeps everything in the assets folders. So yeah, that's why we had this materials folder here. Then we'll create another folder here and we'll name it scripts. So then in this folder, we'll have scripts. So we'll create a new C# script. We'll call this one movement. Um, yeah, so this is just gonna be a movement script. Maybe we should just call it player movement. That might be more descriptive. Okay. Or oh, actually this lets me demonstrate something. Okay, so when you create a script uh in Unity, uh right here you can see that the class name is still movement. So this will actually cause an error because the class name doesn't match the name of the file. Um, so when this happens, uh, Unity will yell at you. And so generally you don't want to rename a file after you already made it. If you do, you just need to make sure that you rename the class here. Um, hold on, give me a sec. I just realized I need to update my OBS with the VS Code window. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you'll have to update this class name to the same name as the file, or you could just delete it, and make another one. I think it might be just easier to do that. So we're gonna name this player movement, and then as you can see when we open it again, now it has the right name. Um, Okay, so now we have player movement. Uh, so in order to add scripts to objects and stuff, uh, you basically take the script and you drag it to the object. So like, uh, uh, it's kind of like a pattern so far. Any like component or like property you want, you just kind of like drag and drop to the game object itself. So now we have the script um, running in the sphere. So basically, like when we launch the game, it will instantiate the script, and the script will be running, um, yeah, under this game object. So so for example, when we say this, this refers to this object itself. So it will refer to the sphere here. So in this case, we're trying to add movement. And so in order to add movement, there's a lot of different ways to do movement. You can either mess with the transform position like itself, which is not the best because then you can have like clipping through stuff. Um, the general, like, I guess best practice is by using the rigid body. Um, and so that's what we'll do. So we're gonna make a variable. Oh, okay. This is something to also note. Okay. Um, Unity sometimes will not have will not properly link to your IDE. Okay. So like right here I put rigid body, but IntelliSense doesn't know what a rigid body is. It thinks it doesn't exist. And so this is kind of frustrating to do or to like fix, but I am here to show you how to fix this. Okay. So pretty much you need to go back to Unity. You need to make sure that your preferences here are set to your external script editor. So right here, I already had VS Code, but sometimes like it still doesn't work even though you have it preset. So I just change it back to open by file extension, change it back to Visual Studio Code, and then click on this regenerate project files. And then usually that just fixes it. So then now if I reopen this, okay, so now it lets me select a project. So in this case, I'll do the Red Ball Workshop SLN. And then I think after a little bit, it should detect. Yes, there we go. So now it's detected. We are in the right project. We are running in perspective of the right project. And then now if I type rigid body, yep, it auto completes. So that's just like a tip. You might encounter. Like this is a problem you might encounter. I personally use VS Code, but I think Unity will ask you if you want to pre-install Visual Studio itself, not the code version. Um, but yeah, if you ever run into that problem, that's the fix. So we're gonna make a rigid body variable. We're gonna call it just rigid body, and then I think these variables by default are private because they're in a class. If you can manually say that they're private, but I think they're private by default. So we're just we're just gonna be lazy and not deal with that. Okay, so we're gonna set the rigid body at the start. We're gonna set it to the rigid body that's in this in the sphere. And so in order to do that, we're gonna do rigid body equals this dot game or this dot get component. And we're gonna get a rigid body. And then this will basically get the first rigid body that it finds within our game object. So now that we have this rigid body, we can go into the update function. So pretty much like as these comments show, start is called like at the very start of the game. When you basically when you click the play button when you launch the game, and then update is called every frame. Um, so keyword frame here, which I will come back to, but basically the update will just happen like through the time in the game, like basically every tick. So in this update, we're going to get what the user is currently pressing down. So we're going to use the input for this. We're going to get axis. Um, let me show you the input manager first. Okay. So in Unity, you can manually get the key pressed down. So like for example, like I can manually do like input dot get key down and then like hard code this to like A or something. But generally, you don't really want to do that because Unity has a built-in input manager to make everything really easy. And it will also help you a lot if you want to make a game where you can reconfigure the controls. So under Edit, and we go to Project Settings, there's a tab here called Input Manager. And so these are all the properties of the input manager that it like pre-handles. And so there's a bunch of like different properties and controls here. So we have like the horizontal axis, um, and then it has a negative and positive button for left and right. So we can use left, right arrow keys, or we can use A, D, or we can actually use a game controller, analog stick, and to control these. So because Unity has all these preset for you, it's just really easy to configure. So this is kind of best practice. There's also like a fire button. So you left click and then it will do the fire function. So we're going to use the input manager here and we're going to do input.get axis and we're going to do the horizontal. So basically left and right axes. So we're going to assign this to a float named x because we're getting the x value basically for the player input. Okay, and then we're going to make another value here, except this we're going to call this z, even though the axis we're getting is called vertical, just because it makes more sense in the 3D space. So in this 3D space, like um, like x is x is left and right, and then z is forward and backward. So we don't want the ball to be floating. So we're not gonna mess with the y. So that's what x and z is. Okay. And then um, so these floats basically do a one or a negative one. That's the range of these to show which direction that the player's trying to move in. And then so if we want to update this with speed, then we can make a public variable called speed. And then just to make this easy, we're going to multiply these by just a constant value just to make the ball move faster. Now for the actual movement, we're going to take the rigid body and then we're going to set the velocity to a new vector 3. And then we're going to have the x value that we get from the player multiplied by the speed. And then we get whatever the current velocity y-axis already is, and then we're going to have the z. And so pretty much this will update on every single frame the ball's velocity. And then now we should have movement. Okay, so the float here, the first speed, as you can see, is uninitialized. There's no value already set to it. So if we come back here, whenever you make a public variable, you'll be able to modify it in Unity itself. So for this speed, we're just gonna put 5, just to make the ball like visibly move. And then now we're gonna hit play. So now we can move the ball around. We can go forward, backward, and then we could go side to side. And wow, we have a moving ball. Okay, Yeah. So th this is how you can do basic movement. So there is like a little bit of like deceleration, thanks to the friction, because we set the velocity to a certain amount, but then the friction automatically like stops the ball. Um, if you wanted to make the ball stop immediately, then you can make it so if you're not if you don't um wait. Oh wait, no. Yeah, okay, never mind. Yeah, this does make the ball stop immediately because when you stop um when you stop pressing on the key, yeah, float X and Z are set to 0. Yeah, right. Okay. So now that we have some straightforward movement, uh, we can add a camera tracker because that way we can follow the ball around. Because right now we can roll the ball off screen. Uh, and then for a game, we might want to be able to keep an eye on where the ball is. So we're going to make a new script and we're going to call it camera controller. So that way we can control where the camera is located. So in this script, we are going to put this into the camera. And then essentially, we're going to need to make this camera attached to the location of the ball at an offset. So we're going to have game object player, just to keep reference of um, where the player is. In this case, we don't need the start function since all right, I'm gonna make this public. So in Unity, uh, when you have like objects, you can select what the object is referring to by clicking on this plus button, or you can um, drag and drop the sphere here, and then this will keep track of what it's referring to um, for the script. So we go back to the script, and then we can remove the start code because we're not going to assign anything at the start or do anything at the start. And then we're going to have the update function just update the camera location to wherever the player is. And so we're going to do this dot transform dot position equals player dot transform dot position. So this, if we do this, it will literally make it so the camera is in the ball. So we don't want that. So we're gonna make the vector3 here, player position, and then set that equal to the player's position. And then we are gonna have an offset here. So we're just gonna make another variable called offset just to make things easy. And then we're gonna have a new vector3, which will have the player's position x, and then we're gonna yeah, we're gonna leave it on the x because we want the sphere to be centered in the screen. We're gonna add the offset here, and then we're gonna subtract the offset here. So basically, the camera is gonna be located above the ball and in front of it, or behind it. Yeah. So now we can go back to Unity. It will update this variable here. We'll set an offset of 5. So it's tracking the sphere with an offset of 5. Now if we press play, uh, so we are tracking the ball, but we are not facing towards the ball. So let's adjust the camera. So there's a few of these tools here. So this one's for position. This one's the rotate tool. So we're gonna use the rotate tool. We're gonna make it face more down. Um, I could also set the rotation manually here. I guess maybe it'd be a good idea to just type in 30 here. Then now we have a ball and we're tracking it with the camera. If we want the ball to move faster, we can adjust it here. There we go. So now we have a ball rolling on the plane.
Ben, do you mind going back to the script for the camera for the camera?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Thanks, man. And do you mind going a little to the right so I can see the rest of the transform? This transform position equals new vector line.
Yeah. Here, let me resize it.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, let me know if you guys need me to explain anything. Um, Hopefully everything's digestible so far.
Is there any way you can like set like a delay?
A delay?
Well, like you move the object and like a trailing delay.
Oh, like kind of like you smooth it out so like the camera's a little bit behind in the ball? Or
Yeah, kind of like that, and then well, it's almost like Skyrim, right? You, you go forward. The faster you go forward, and then when you start slowing down, the camera catches up. That kind of thing. But I mean, not as grand as that.
yeah. So um there there is a way you could do that. That would require a little bit more math, I guess. But essentially you could adjust the velocity of the camera so that way it like moves towards the player. So like you can get the location of the camera, you can get the location of the player, and then um you give it some velocity to go towards the player, and then like once it reaches like really close to the player, then uh then like you reset the velocity kind of. So um yeah, that would kind of like require like more math, I guess. It wouldn't be as simple as this, where it's just like a one line thing.
I did drop in the general chat a link to so Unity has a documentation, and one of the functions they have is vector3.smoothDamp. And I'm not going to make Ben code a smooth damping function on the fly because that's just cool. It's not a coding interview. But if the terminology in games that we use is called damping. So in order to damp the camera, if you follow that link to the documentation, Unity actually gives an example of how to smooth damp to give that behavior of the ball moves away and the camera kind of slowly catches up to it, and then when the ball stops, it like kind of bungees instead of like being on a stick. It has a little bit of elasticity to it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. Uh, so yeah, that's like pretty much it for the basics, I guess. We have like basic movement here. We have camera tracking. Um, yeah, so it's just a ball rolling on the surface. Um, if we want, we can make it a little bit more fancy. We can add, uh, instead of doing just straight velocity, so like the ball is like super, I guess like tied down to our input, we can add like acceleration, deceleration. So um, so as an example, we could just copy paste this, and then we could do we could add to the velocity instead of setting the velocity. So in this case, we'll have to make sure that we don't add anything to the y, and then we just simply add the x and the z. Now, the problem with doing this is that update is called once per frame. Okay, so emphasis on the frame. So that means this is based on how fast your computer can just make frames, um, which is bad because that means the ball will move faster if you have a higher FPS. Um, And we don't want that. So we're going to multiply this by time.delta time. And so what time.delta time does is it basically takes the time between the current frame and the last frame. So that way, the speed that we're moving the ball at is frame independent. So it's not linked to the FPS at all. This is like something you really want to look out for when you're dealing with update. Like especially when you're adding stuff. Like for here, because we're setting it equal to like a specific value is not really important because we're not adding or subtracting anything for every update. We're just setting the value. But in this case, we're going to be adding to add acceleration. So that's why time.delta time is really important. So we're going to hit play here. And then now our ball is kind of like swinging based on what input we give it. So I'm holding W and then I hold S, or I mean D, and then wow, we're moving so fast. But yeah, so this is like just an example of how you could do acceleration. If you want, you can also factor in how heavy the object is. So there's another property in rigid body that is called that for force. So add force. So if we go back to Unity here, we can see that rigid body has a mass. And so we can adjust this mass, and obviously it will adjust how fast the ball accelerates because, you know, F equals ma. And then so here we'll add a new force, vector 3. We'll make it based on the input vector. Then we will multiply this by time.delta time since we're adding a force every frame. And then now we're basically adding acceleration based on like the mass of the object as well. So this is just another way of you can implement the movement. So I'm holding W right now and it's taking a while to accelerate. And that's because it's factoring the mass as well. And is being inhibited by the friction that we have in the physics object. So this is just another example of what you could do with rigid body. You could definitely explore the Unity like features and like properties and stuff to figure out how everything works. Yeah, so that's pretty much I guess a basic rundown on how to use Unity. Anybody have any questions?
I remember last week or I think it was a week or two ago, you had like different planes, like okay, you had like a ramp kind of thing,
Yeah.
and or even if you could, create like a I don't know, like a slide or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of, we've kind of gone over the movement of the ball and the creation of the ball, but how do you set up different planes in that sense?
Do you mean like having like different objects and like obstacles to go through?
Well, not even just different obstacles. Like, let's just say you wanted to concatenate a ramp into that plane, right? Or I don't know, make a hole or whatever. Um, how do you do that?
Uh, so like there's a lot of like different like 3D assets and stuff that you can import. So you can find a lot of assets on like the Unity store. But if you're talking about like, you know, for example, like making a ramp, oh, wait. Like what we could do here is we could make like a cube. And then we can, let me reset the positions. So now we have a cube. We can make it so it's like basically like a flat surface and then we could rotate it. And now we have like a ramp. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, like, okay, so it went in through the other plane, but like, if you were like to merge them on the edges, or does it really matter?
Oh, okay. Uh, I see what you mean. I think that's kind of based on the model. Uh, Rich, is there any way you could like cut this out?
Nah, so Unity's not a modeling program. So they give you some basic shapes that you can play with, but if you need to like mess with the vertices, you could either import a package that Unity owns called Pro Builder, which you can create like complicated shapes and stuff and like mess with the vertices. And I think you can even merge two shapes together, like you were saying. But typically what you might do is build your complex shapes in 3D software like Blender or Maya or Sketchfab, and then import them into Unity, and then you can drop them in. So Unity doesn't have any proprietary models. Like if you can make a Blender or something in Maya, I think the standard formats are like FBX or OBJ. Unity can consume any of those common ones.
Okay, awesome.
So to that point, Ben, do you think you could import some of those easy roads or something, either from the asset shuffle or from the asset store?
Yeah, sure.
Or cool.
Yup.
Just to show like how you drag stuff into the scene from the inspector or something.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so Will actually prepared the asset shuffle for this one. It's just a modification of uh, asset shuffle 6 that we did over the summer. Um, Give me a sec though. I'm gonna need to pull it up.
Yeah, no worries. Now we're going off the cuff.
But yeah, yeah, so any other questions though in the meantime?
Nah, Ben, I think you did a really good job.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know how.
Great job, Ben.
Claps for Ben for giving his
Oh, Ben.
tutorial. Claps and snaps in the chat.
Thanks, bros. Okay.
All right, so you're getting the asset shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. While you're getting that, I'll just cover again what asset shuffles are. So every few weeks we will give a game making challenge that we call asset shuffles. So we will provide for you some free assets and some free code, just some really basic stuff, a little bit of gameplay, a little bit of movement or something. And the idea is that everybody takes 2 weeks and they download the project on their machines, and you guys build it from there. So you do whatever you want to it. You don't. It's supposed to be low stakes and low cost, so don't feel like you have to make an entire game with levels and sounds and scores and all kinds of stuff. Like the idea is just to give you some incentive to play around with things, because you don't start game dev by jumping right into a master 3-year project. You start game dev by making small projects and learning the ins and outs of how the little things work. Because big, complex projects are really made of small, simple projects. So this week's asset shuffle will be about rollerball, and Ben's pulling that up right now. And then in 2 weeks we will reconvene and we will show off what we've made. And some people will just do like, some people have levels and some people will have like, oh, here's a whole bunch of lights and particle effects and no gameplay, but it looks really cool. And there's no limits and there's no stakes. So just kind of, play around with it and come show us what you did and show us what you learned and show us what you struggled with.
Yes, sir. Yep, it's just all a learning experience. I learn new things every day. I learned things while I was making this workshop. So, uh, all right, so we have the project pulled up. So when you first load up the project, you probably won't see anything because it is like a new it opens a new scene. So as you can see, it says untitled here. So in order to actually open the scene, we had to go into the scenes folder and then double click this. And then so now we have the actual scene and what Will has prepared for us. Okay, so over here we have a ball in space. Okay, on a platform, on a green platform. And the idea of the shuffle is this shuffle is kind of more based on level building and just kind of getting used to like, you know, just like putting things in the environment for Unity. So your goal is to just, give this ball a track to go to the red platform. And so we hit play here. So we just have a ball and it just moves around and it has camera tracking, just like what we just made. Except if you look through Will's code here, it's like pretty much the same thing as what we did, except Will just has it organized a little bit more. Yeah, so we just have like the basic movement script, and then we have a controller script for the movement. This is just for the player stuff. We have player host, and then we have a game manager. You kind of don't really need to like look through any of these scripts. You could look through them if you want to add your own functionality. Like for example, if you want to make the ball like accelerate, like zoom. I don't know, but uh, yeah, there's just the player scripts here. You can read the code if you want to look at how everything works. Will has a game manager script here, and it has a restart button bound to R. So that way you could just respawn the ball if you fall off. So we press R and then we respawn the ball. Okay, I don't know why the lighting changed, but let's not talk about that. So
It's the afterlife.
yeah. Uh, Yeah, so in the resources here, we have a bunch of models. So these are just free like Unity assets that we just downloaded from the asset store. And then, so if you want to build your own track, you just drag and drop it. And then like rotate this boy. Oh, you know what? This makes it harder. Let's keep it. Then you can copy paste. And then move this
Oh,
one.
how do you copy things in Unity?
Yeah, Control C, Control V.
You use Control D. It's
Oh
for
yeah,
duplicate.
Control D.
It's
Yeah,
it's not what you think it is. It's Control D.
yeah. Control D is the duplicate. All right, we're just gonna make this unreasonably like. All right, it looks like we can make it. I think we can make it.
50-50 bonus to make it.
Oh, oh no. Right. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier, where when you import a model, it doesn't necessarily have a collider yet. So we're gonna need to add a mesh collider here. And we're just gonna add a mesh collider to each of these. So yeah, after you add one though, if you like duplicate it again, it still has the same properties, of course. All right, let's give ourselves a better chance. Okay. Oh, let's go. Oh no, I'm falling.
Ah.
But yeah, yeah, so you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can make something as messy as this, or you can make it like immaculate, like Will always makes his stuff. But yeah, definitely just try things out. There's not really a commitment here. The main idea is, just open the project, mess around with stuff, just learn something. Yeah, so this is the asset shuffle for this week. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, how do you download the asset shuffle?
Oh yeah. Let me post the link. That's a good idea. All right. So, in the asset shuffle channel, we're going to have a link here to a GitHub. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with GitHub. I don't know if you want me to go over that.
You don't need Git. You just are you able to show just how to download? Like you just follow it, hit the green button, and then download the zip. Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah. So you just go to the page. You could click on code here, and you can click on download zip,
Perfect.
and then it will just give you the project. And then so all you have to do is when you open up Unity, like after you extract this zip, you just go to this asset shuffle 6 folder, and then that's about it. And then you're good to go. Just make sure you go to scenes and then open up the sample scene.
Cool. And by all means, if y'all have any questions or get stuck at all, like we are your residents, we're here to help you out. This isn't a college class where we go silent and ghost you until the day before it's due. Like by all means, you can ask questions and people can help you out. And like this is the safe place to ask questions.
Yes, sir.
Well, cool guys. So that is the challenge. In 2 weeks' time, you got to make the ball go from the green place to the red place. And then, so in 2 weeks, we'll do what we call the asset shuffle showcase, where we'll all just spend a minute and we'll do show and tell, and we'll show what we learned and what we tried and what didn't work. And maybe some people spend 15 minutes, and some people, like Matt, spend 2 days. But it's up to you what you wanna put into it.
Yep.
Well, cool guys. Ben, thank you so much for doing this tutorial and for putting for showing off the asset shuffle as well. Snaps and claps for Ben in the chat, please.
Thank you.
They're just as good as
Thank you.
real snaps and claps. But yeah. Anything else? Any final business or anything before we break?
I think we're
Awesome.
good.
No worries.
I have a
Yes.
question
Go for it.
about adding like walls or like for like an obstacle if it was like if the ball were to like hit into a wall.
Mhm.
Is it like similar as placing down the floor tiles?
Mhm. Yeah, so we just have a bunch of different tiles and like models here that you could just drag and drop. So like I could have
Oh,
like a
okay.
little construction cone right here. Yep. And then give it some physics. Make sure you put the mesh collider. And then after that, we press play. Oh, all right, this is too steep.
But yeah, I get the idea.
Yeah.
But you can also just make a cube, like just a 3D cube,
Mhm.
and you can elongate it, and that's kind of just as good.
Oh yeah, that could work too. Yeah.
Get it.
Oh. We're getting there.
It's colliding, so
There we go.
yeah.
And if you want to knock the cube over, how do you do that? Sorry, Ben, just real off the
Yep.
cuff, but you got this.
So we just add a rigid body. Yay. And then now we have physics. So I have a feeling this is gonna just slide off, but
Yeah.
let's see. Oh, just fell through the floor. Oh no.
It's because the mesh collider, you got to check the box that says convex.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's a rigid body, it has to be convex.
There we go. Oh. Here, we're just gonna climb up and then we're gonna hit it. All right, we moved it a little bit. All right, we could change
Yeah,
the
Oh,
map.
that's
so-
good to me.
Yep.
Yeah, so if it doesn't have a rigid body, it's a completely solid force. And if you give it a rigid body, then it then it'll behave how you want it to.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, we tipped it over.
We'll sacrifice the cone.
But yeah. Yeah, any other questions?
One other question on you said you can make something in Blender or is there anything you can like make in the Adobe suite that can go into this? Or what if there's any Adobe products that because I have like Creative Cloud and I was wondering if I can throw that in there.
Yes, I think Adobe. Well, so Photoshop for one. If you're fluent in Photoshop, then that's all you need to make like 2D games. Like you make all your sprites and your animations and like your UI elements in Photoshop, and then import them as like PNGs or GIFs or JPEGs into Unity. But then also I think does Adobe have 3D modeling software?
I'm not sure. Let me
I can't remember what it was called. I feel like they've got a foot in every door, but
Yeah, I'm actually not sure either.
yes,
3D.
Substance 3D. That's what they call it. Substance. So they got Substance Painter, and then they've got like some other things too. Substance 3D Modeler. Yeah, so you can use any other product that you want. But when you export it, you'll want to export it as either a .fbx or a .obj. And I know that there's a few others, but those are just the two that are most popular and come to mind.
Okay, gotcha.
We did it.
Ah, yeah.
A goal in.
All right, sounds good.
If you ask me, this is better than Super Monkey Ball.
Just a bunch of floating roads.
Cool. Any other questions?
All right, looks
All right,
like we're good.
Cool. But again, by all means, I virtually live on Discord. So if you ask a question anywhere in here, eventually I'll hear about it and I'll answer it, or anyone else as well.
All right, sweet.
Well, cool.
Looks like we're
This
good.
is a good place to break. Sorry, what was that, Ben? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just saying, looks like we're good.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks, Ben, and thank everyone else for coming. Thank you for first-time comers and nth-time comers. We appreciate seeing the new and the old faces, and I look forward to seeing what you guys explore and what you guys make in Unity or any other game dev or game engine of your choice. Well, all right. I will see you next week. We'll have something else planned, and then the week after that is when we'll do the showcase and show and tell and stuff. Cool, guys. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Later.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks. Thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks for coming.